Welcome to the Shaman Stories Podcast. My guest today is Stacy. She's an ancestral healing guide, a multidimensional wayshower, an energy tracker with the Light Body Academy. Stacy's work bridges the seen and the unseen, helping people identify and release inherent trauma, energetic imprints, and unconscious patterns carried through family lineages, lifetimes, and beyond. Working with the ancestral wisdom, elemental forces, and the expanded state of consciousness, she guides others through deeper healing, spiritual awakening, and remembering who they truly are beneath conditioning and old stories. Thanks for being on the show, Stacy.
Yeah, thanks. That was a great introduction. I love that, the wording of that.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Anything you want to add to that maybe I missed or?
Also one of the things that I'm seeing right now that's really important that a lot of people are coming to me for two things. One, death rites.
Mm,
And that's not last rites. Death rites is different, so it's helping support your loved ones transition to whatever their next stage of their process is, whatever within their soul's journey. And I'm getting a lot of people asking for support around their environment, like meaning house clearings,
mm.
property clearings, and really needing an upgrade or a shift in where they're living and spending most of their time. So those two things I'm just noticing are so present in our awareness right now. So,
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because I'm older, because
mm.
you know how everyone's like, oh, when you get to a certain age, everyone starts getting cancer, everyone starts
Oh yeah.
dying. And it's
Mhm.
like, I'm only 46, but it's like I'm seeing all these people around me just getting stage 4 cancer like that.
Yeah.
Moving on, or drug overdoses are happening more and more
Oof.
common these days. And I do death rites as well, where after someone moves on, I make sure their soul doesn't get stuck and release them. And
Yes.
any last messages they might have for their family. And it could be sometimes days after they passed, weeks, or sometimes they get stuck and the family doesn't realize it. But same thing, house clearings, all that. It shows up. I have friends who are real estate agents and they're like, hey, can you come check out this house?
Yeah. Yeah, I actually work with realtors doing that same thing. I actually have a business doing that because it's so like needed right now. Yeah, that's so
And it's like, yeah,
funny.
yeah, let's clear it out and hopefully you can sell it. Because the second house we ever bought, yeah, it had a ghost in it, and this is before I ever got into my work, and we didn't understand what was going on. And my youngest, who's 11 now, was just a baby, and he's always like looking up at the ceiling and laughing at something or getting scared at something. And we had a
Wow.
babysitter one time who was watching him, and like we went into the bedroom to finish getting dressed before we left for the night, my wife and I, and all of a sudden we hear this glass break, and we come out in the kitchen to see what's going on, and the babysitter was like, "Yeah, the glass was just sitting on the counter and it just shot across the floor." And I'm like, "Well, that's kind of weird, you know."
Wow.
But yeah, it's prevalent these days, and I don't know if it's just because I'm older and I'm more noticing it, or if it's just a sign of the times with what a lot of people, kind of what we were talking about before, people are talking about the new earth and the phasing, and
Mhm.
is this people just moving on to make way for new souls who are ready to be here now? I don't really know.
I think it's like everything. I think it's like all of the above. I think our sensitivities have grown, right? As you
Hmm.
age, I have definitely noticed there is like, I think it's around 45 is when you really come into your spiritual sensitivities in a stage where you can kind of understand a bigger picture, of things. So I think definitely we're noticing it more. And
Yeah.
I hit 51 this year. And once I hit 50, it was like there was a different level of awareness that came forward than it was in my 40s.
Hmm.
But there's also there is absolutely an expression of this new paradigm, the new shift that we're working through that and what way I'm working with the energies and the way I see it, especially with my clients and everyone around me, including myself, is that there's a higher level waking up that's happening, right? There's a leveling up process. There's an expansion process, which then means, are you facing those things that need to be cleared out and need to be released so you can be in this next step in your soul's journey? And those pieces that are holding us back are becoming more obvious, I believe. We are kind of getting a little bit of a, let's say, our challenges are, the mirror is really strong right now, right?
Yeah.
For us to see. And it's more uncomfortable. It really is. And so the blessing in this is if we can hold that space of, okay, this experience is happening. What is in this for me? And really looking, it's showing you what's in your gap, right? It's showing you what's ready to be released, or what gets to be aware, awareness on, and identified. And I don't like the word identified, but so you can really start to release and expand into these next levels that are presenting. So that piece is, I'm seeing it now in every kind of aspect of life, right? So and even in the environment, which we just talked about.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and it seems to be not just on the personal side too, but society, right? I've noticed a lot of
yes,
people I talked to, it was the 2020 that woke them up,
yeah,
quote unquote woke them up. They
yeah,
became more spiritual. They started seeing the systems not working for them. A lot of people in the society are seeing, we have these structures that have been in place for hundreds of years now, and they're just not working for us, and things aren't working the way they should be, the way we were promised. And we're starting to get more pushback on all the systems, the food, the medical, the governments, like everything around the world. People are just, they're kind of just done with it. They're like, this isn't working.
it's not working. Yeah, you're so right. And it's awesome to see, let's say, folks that weren't on this path like you and I, right? Now waking up to seeing it. And it's interesting, the ones that are choosing to depart, to leave their current body, to leave this current lifetime and transition onto something else. And then the ones that are choosing to stay, the ones that are listening to their inner truth and starting that process or continuing that process of forward movement in whatever direction they're called to do. And then the ones that are wanting to stay, free will, right, in whatever they've been in, and they
Hmm.
don't want to. And gosh, I know we've been talking about this for a few years now in terms of like, okay, is there going to be a split? Are there going to be two paths? Who's going to wake up? Who's not? I do feel everyone's going to come along eventually. I do feel like there's waves, and we're seeing the waves now. And I do believe folks in the waves of awakening more right now, like the ones that are really, like, let's say, expanding their awareness, are going to support the ones that need more support to move into their inner truth, to move into whatever their full expression is. And it's, I don't know. I go through this a lot, and I think it's my ego driver, like wanting to hold on to something. But I'm going into this process a lot of like, is there going to be a golden age? Are we going to have any more
Yeah.
struggle? I want it to be a golden age again. I want to be back to that. But I don't see that, at least for a while. I definitely see we're in a challenge, we're in a process.
Yeah, and it takes time, and that's the thing that frustrates me with some people. It's like, oh, 2025 is the year everything changes, or 2026 is the year everything changes. And yeah, it might change, but it's going to be a slow burn. It's not an overnight. Again, I mean, we talked about this before the show. Yeah, it'd be cool if aliens came down, gave us the med bed, said, "Hey, knock it off," and gave us unlimited energy sources, and we all sung "Kumbaya" and made peace on the earth. Maybe that'll happen eventually. We'll get to that Star Trek future.
Yeah.
But we also have that potential of being in that cyberpunk dystopian future where it's like we might have to go through that for a couple years till people finally rise up and say this is enough. That's really what all these new data centers are about is it's not for your Netflix, it's for your government control. And some people might think I'm wearing a tinfoil hat at this point, but that's
Oh,
you need these data
yes.
centers in order to put in the control grid of some sort. And people pushing back on that is a good thing. So
Yes.
we're in this time of we could go either way, I feel, and we're not quite one way or the other
Yeah,
yet. And
I
we
agree
might
with
have
you.
a little bit of both until we get to the good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you think about, if you reflect on it, like in your personal life, right? And I've been doing a lot of that this morning. And like, okay, what has to dismantle within me,
Mm,
right? To be able to embrace this next step, to be, let's say, deeper in my inner truth, in my fuller expression of who I am. And those pieces, it's such an inside job now, right? It's such an inside place to be because I can see my inner world and the outer world reflection. I can see how does this have to be more extreme for me to wake up? Can I do this with grace and ease? Well, there's sometimes I can't. And there's something I'm working through right now where it's like, whoa, okay, this one I guess is not with grace and ease, and some of it is. And I ask for support so it can be a little smoother, but then I'm like, whoa, if I'm going through this within me, then what is happening out there for folks? And so that inside job piece is really what we can control, right? And where we can go. And you hear it from all the thought leaders right now, all the spiritual leaders right now. We hear it along on all the podcasts where it really what the focus is in our work right now.
Yeah.
And it really is. And that's why that ancestor piece I find to be a really great layer of healing in that.
Yeah, and I want to touch into that because I was watching some of your videos on healing the ancestral piece, but before I get there, I kind
Yeah.
of want to, touch on your story, how you
Oh,
got
okay.
to where you got, because that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
kind of the premise of the show is to help people understand that, oh, maybe what she went through or what he went through is similar to what I'm going through. And if they got to the other side, then I can do it as well. So I want to put a pause on that and just kind of go
Sure.
back to young Stacy. Did you grow up with any
Ah,
of these kind of modalities? Was this
mhm.
stuff always in your life? Did you have some sort of breakdown where you finally had to start working on yourself? Now, how did you get to where you're at today?
Whew. All right. If I get emotional, just bear with me. It's been one of those few days of layers presenting, and I'm witnessing certain wounds from the past arising. So this will be great. This actually will be a healing moment for me as well as we start to talk. And so sensitive child, like I think a very common story for a lot of us, right? Where is very much a sensitive child and really sense, felt, saw. I would see things more like the types of things I would see are more like kind of shadow figure stuff or like holographic images, but
Hmm.
it wasn't like I identified them in any way. There wasn't like, oh, this is a Palladian, this is a whatever. It was just more of like, I never really questioned any of that. I just like, it was just kind of there. The sensitivities were so heightened, though, that it was very hard to function as a young child. And that created me to be more emotional. And especially where the sensitivities would come out the most were injustices, especially around animals. I had such a hard time that became my outlet of the way I could feel sadness, let's say, was if people were hurting, or especially if animals were being harmed. And I noticed that like it's still like a wound in me that I still get to work through. And I mean, animal harm is just like, oh, it's gut wrenching for not that I mean I do eat meat and all that kind of stuff. There's no agenda there. It's just the animal kingdom to me is a very special place, and
There's a proper way to do it too. I raise my own animals and everything too, and it's completely different than, a cattle farm that takes it into a facility and things happen there. It's
yes.
giving the animal respect and love and, basically giving its death rights and letting its soul go back into the earth and, giving it thanks for what it's doing for you and your family is completely different than the commercial side. So I completely understand. There's a way different way of
Oh my
being.
gosh. Because imagine when you're eating, like you're eating that trauma energy of that animal who was raised in a pen or, and all of that. So those death rites, that honoring, that thanking of your food, thanking of that animal while you eat, even if it's, let's say, the distorted meat, at least energetically, when you bring it in, you can transmute that energy, and I love that you do that. I source my meat from, pasture raised, like a humane facility because of that, because I'm a city person,
Yeah.
and here. So, but I love that and admire people who really honor their food. So when growing up and these sensitivities, one thing I learned very early on, is that my family could not support my, let's say, inner truth, couldn't support at the time me being in that full expression. So at a very young age, I learned how to transition that. I went through some pretty rough things as a child, and including like sexual assault, neighbor, that kind of stuff. And that was pretty young. And that was in that like maybe 7 years old kind of mark. And that took me to another layer. But I knew at that point, I could not turn to anyone to support what was going on inside of me. And I literally watched my soul rise out of my body and go to the ceiling of the space where this would happen over and over again. And from that, I knew I had a very strong understanding of, okay, I get that I have a soul, like I'm here for a bigger reason. I get that I'm not just a human. I'm not this 3D physical form. I knew that at that age, but I also knew I had to play a game. And so looking back, it's like, holy shit. Sorry. Oh, can I swear? Sorry.
No, it's fine.
It's my Jersey mouth that comes out. When we're talking childhood, it'll come. Okay. So I realized, okay, so I already knew what my family could support me on and what they couldn't. But then that moment happened, and that like shattered me in a lot of ways, and it really, I knew I came into this world loving humanity. I love humanity. I'm here to serve humanity. I thrive on connection with people. And that moment, I knew it solidified what humanity was all about in this lifetime right now, as a child. So with that experience, of course, I started to shut down. I never really called my soul back in. And I've had to work many layers over many years of reclaiming and recalling in, and there's still like, there can still be, I see one little piece that's not ready to come in yet. And I think there's something coming forward soon about that piece. So there's fragmented soul pieces that, and the shamanic work, that's just, so for me, that kind of was a big transition point. And there was also some other transition points. And that at that time, I moved around a lot as a kid. At that point, we were living in Texas, and my dad's the New York City guy. Living in Texas was a very interesting experience in that whole experience. So we had some other things come up during that time that really made it scary to live and to know, wow, are the adults around me going to be able to like really support me? And felt unsafe all the time, So as I was going through life, I redirected my energy outside of myself. Caring for my brother, caring for others, just keeping the attention on others, because that was a coping mechanism, right? And not to do my own work. That continued, and I developed a pattern of abusive relationships. And even in college, crazy stuff where I was with a very abusive person who was a drug dealer, didn't know it at the time, crazy stuff, that was happening, and had very young children at 14, didn't understand all this stuff, was just in it. Like as a college student, you're supposed to be out there having fun and everything. And I was in this abusive relationship with children, like, I don't know how I worked 3 jobs, had that relationship, and got through college, but I did. And it was just that function, right? I was just in that mode of functioning and lost myself. But the interesting thing, even during the abuse, there was a part of, I knew consciously I had to step out of my truth and be in this to get through this. And there's some reason for it. And I was able to plan for a whole year a way out of that relationship. But I had to very strategically plan, and I had certain people in place to keep me safe, to strategically plan to get out of it. And I did. And it was very empowering, because there was a moment in that relationship after I graduated from college. I said, I am not going to have this life. I just graduated. Look what I just accomplished. I'm not going to have this life. And I had to, again, after I woke up, had to work on doing that. Once I was able to really free myself from that and get into a safer space, I worked all the PTSD and I started doing all that. I then came back to this path. And I really was like, I got to come back in. So I have an Indigenous background and a European background, mainly European, but I also have Indigenous lineages, Lakota from North Dakota, as well as Seneca from upstate New York. So those pieces, I wanted to refine those connections with my ancestors. And I grew up with my mom talking to the ancestors all the time. She'd be walking around talking to her mother, talking to her father, talking to her sister, So I grew up as this is a normal thing to do that. And I don't know ancestrally where that comes from. Yeah, maybe it's the Indigenous side that maybe got passed down, but I never connected it culturally. It was just something that the way it was in our household. Not that like my parents were recovering Catholics, left the church, did all those kinds of things, and left that kind of space because they weren't connected to organized religion anymore. So I grew up really kind of just open, agnostic, I want to say. But I also like watched this, and this then I didn't know it was not normal. I didn't know it was something that wasn't common. So when I came back to myself after the last abusive relationship in my I would say early 20s, I then started that slow connection, but I didn't connect the ancestor piece. So I started then yoga, meditation, and I had all explored that all through middle school, high school. Like I know, like I was always into kind of this let's say the unseen world as a normal thing. But I didn't really once I got back to myself and started coming in, the yoga was really kind of a start. Meditation was a start. And then I really started going back into my ancestral roots, and I really started connecting, especially with the Indigenous side. And when that started happening, I started being invited to ceremony. So sweat lodge, pipe ceremony, and that really started opening me back up. And that's when I started to see my ancestors. That's when I started to see, I could see images. I could see actual scenes playing out with my people. Like I could see things. And that slowly, but I was still mainstream. I worked in college admissions for a long time, helping people with like applying to college, undergrad in the US mainly, but around the world too with students. But so I was in a kind of a mainstream world, but I always had this, on the side. And as I started having children, I started deepening and deepening my practices, deepening my connection. And I went from, let's say, more ceremony and initiations, more on a mystery school level, or let's say shamanic or indigenous level, to then incorporating more of a multidimensional perspective. And that's when the game changed. Meaning, like, we're of all these different timelines. We are of, we're connected and related to a lot of these beings that are not only humanoids, or of a human 3D body. So that's when things really started expanding. So my path has been really waking back up to myself, lots of addiction in my family, lots of, abuse, things like that I had to wake up out of to get there. But it's interesting where when I look back, I knew I came into this life knowing I was not going to be safe and that I had to do it myself. I had to find myself. And it's still, again, 51, and I'm still feel like I don't know anything, So, yeah, so that's a little bit about the background.
Okay. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. It's like every time you get a little bit deeper, something new comes up, and you're like, "What is this now? What am I doing? Should I even be doing this anymore?" It would just be so easy to just stop and turn on Netflix and just go back to playing video games for 20 hours a day and just pretend like none of this ever happened.
Oh my gosh, I think about that too.
But yeah, and so I guess let's touch into the ancestral piece. One thing I liked was I was watching some of your YouTube videos, and you were talking about connecting back to the father and the masculinity side of things. And
Oof.
I think that's important, not just because I'm a male, but we have spent at least 20, 30 years that I can remember, honestly, just going against masculinity. Everything's toxic.
Mhm.
Doesn't matter there's no good whatsoever. Everything's toxic, and everyone's only talking about the divine feminine.
Mm.
And I
Yes.
think it's the Lakota tribe actually who had this prophecy of with the new earth, male and female both have to work together and
Yes.
integrate in order for the new world to come to pass and to do it correctly. And I
Yes.
always took this to mean not just physical representations, not just the man and the woman, but also internally, like we've been talking about with the masculine and the feminine. And so, yeah, the masculine piece has been corrupted and there is issues and there's things we need to look at. But I would say the same thing on the feminine side. There's
Absolutely.
issues there too. And just to ignore one in order to say the other one's better doesn't work either. Because that's the problem we had before, right? Is we said masculinity was great, femininity was bad or lesser than.
Yes.
We can't go full tilt the other way. We need to look at both and address the issues we have in order to heal both and make us whole again. And that's one thing I liked about your videos is you're one of the few people I've seen talking about, the father ancestry
Mhm.
and the masculinity line, especially from a woman's perspective. Usually if a guy does it, it becomes, oh, he's a toxic masculinity just
Oh,
trying
yeah.
to show that men are great and blah, blah, blah. Like, no, no, no. We need to fix the masculinity energy, not, and that would fix the
Yes.
man, but it's not just about a guy with muscle being bad. It's the
Yeah.
masculine energy and how we're using it, and that becomes the patriarchy. That becomes the slavery and all the other issues we had where we think we're better than other people. But I'm talking the energy piece.
Oh my gosh, I love this topic. And first of all, I love men so much. I love men so much. But through my trauma, anyone who knows me would have said I was the opposite a long time ago, right? But I literally had to heal with men. The universe placed a pretty incredible man in my life, my husband, who I've been with for 20 something, whatever years, to learn how to heal. Like I've
Hmm.
tried to get rid of him and do it alone, but I've been meant to heal with him. There's something in that at that level, which for a long time I treated him as my father and other men in my life and tried to treat him as an enemy. But once that shifted in within me, how much I love men. And I'm saying men. I love the masculine energy, but there's something about men I just love. And there's because I'm able to really embody and come into this piece of the divine masculine, and the divine feminine, not only within, I'm working through that, and also without, outside of me, let's say. So this piece is really, and some of my deepest healing I had to do in energy circles with men, you know, and that was something that, so to me, there's not a threat. There's not what it used to feel like. But the universe has gifted me many opportunities to work on healing that for myself and even how I raise my girls, how we were talking about our children
Hmm.
before. I raised them in a way to be afraid because that's the energy I held for a long time. And so as I'm healing, we're working on healing all together in that. So the girls can have, and I'm watching certain relationships they have, and they're coming into these beautiful relationships with men. And so it's so amazing, the process. So this idea of there's no right, wrong, good, bad, right? We're all in it. We've been all things. We've done all things. We've been victims. We've been perpetrators. We've been spectators. We've been it all. And that's that multidimensional lens of this, of our world and of what we're working through. So we can't hold one side. It's everything everywhere all at once, energy. And this was so cool. I do a free group energy clearing every month, fourth Sunday of the month. It's online, it's Zoom. And we just did one. And it was all about this past weekend. And it was all about what's in the way of fully embracing our inner truth and it being in that full expression of who we are. And it was like a big, big concept here to go into. And when we were tracking the energy, and it's my team tracking the energy with me and everyone involved, that their teams, their spirit teams are helping to create the space. And then there was the Pashants were coming in. So these are the Lyrans, the lion people, and the Sasquatch were holding a really powerful space in this group energy clearing to help us get there. And first place we went was our father's lineage. And it was particular to our father's lineage. And there was a distortion from a dark force spell we got to around the masculine, feeling that they had to be the ones to always carry the burden. of everything, the burden of the world. And that was showing, and that was being expressed through all of our lineage and how we inherited it for ourselves, which created this separation with the feminine. And then in the mother line, which there's of course feminine on all sides, on the father's side too, but the way it showed was a mother-father piece. And on the feminine, on the mother's side, the mother line, it showed complete shutdown, frozen energy, complacency, energy. And that is how they were facing each other. So you have this masculine trying to take a burden and the responsibility, being the man, like that kind of energy, which was distorted with the mother line and a total shutdown and complacency. And the energy between the two lines was so strong. It was like a very, let's say, inverted energy that kept everyone separate. And it was so fascinating to watch. And it was like, and this is just a version of it, because anytime we track energy, we can see other layers, we can see other dynamics, but that was the particular dynamic that was playing out in that group energy clearing. And what we were able to do is liberate within the father's lineage this responsibility piece that was so distorted through a spell that got cleared out. And it was an interesting one because this was a collective piece, but each member of the lineage has a free will and had to decide whether they wanted to liberate from this energy or if they want to stay in it in their soul's journey. So there's always choice in anything that gets cleared up. But this piece that came forward, then after working the father lineage, then the mother lineage woke up and realized, oh my gosh, there's been this like disconnection, this separation. And then the mother's line was able to wake up and really start to see the father line for what it was trying to do, which was a full expression of the divine energy, of the divine masculine energy, but it got all distorted, just like the feminine got all distorted, looking like it was, absent, reserved, complacent, frozen, separate. But it wasn't. It was this, what she was trying to come into was a flow state where the masculine's an action state. You know what I mean? And so we reharmonize that. And so we'll see how it gets expressed through people's lives. But one of the things I love what you just said, because I just saw this reflected in my life around the team, the divine masculine and the divine feminine, the divine union that is being brought back within all of us, or let's say reawakened within all of us in the new paradigm, the new earth. That is a part of the energies that are coming forward. I noticed, so again, been married for a very long time, love my husband, very Capricorn-y, type of energy. And I'm like a Taurus, but Aries in Vedic and true sky. So I have a lot of like high energy. But we have realized we've lived our lives very separate. We've lived our lives in a way we're very super independent. And we were friends for a long time before we got together. So we just had these like kind of separate lives. We raised our kids kind of in our separate places. Recently, within my awakening, where I'm healing this 8-year-old, 7-year-old, 8-year-old self of mine and the traumas I've had, I have come into realizing I want a team. And it's come through that I want to live the rest of my life as a team. I don't want to be independent anymore. I still want to be free. Of course, I'm going to have my space. But something happens this last week where something shifted within him and within me, so, within our own process, that brought us forward into a team, and everything's shifting. The way things are being gifted to us, the way things are happening, things feel more aligned. And that team piece, for us in particular, this union piece, something is happening. And I never thought about it until you exactly just said this and brought that team piece back, that alignment. We can't be separate anymore. It has to come into alignment, whatever that looks like for each of us. Sorry, I'm talking so long.
Oh no, you're good. It's all interesting. That's what we're here for. But no, and like when you mentioned the burden side, like I totally resonated with that 100% because it becomes this societal, personal, you just got to man up, just get it done, take care of everything. The man's the provider, the man does this, the man
Yes.
does that. And, the woman has her part too. And, woman is source, right? It's
Hmm.
without woman, there is nothing else. And
Yes.
it's honoring that, but it's also honoring the protective energy of the masculine. But that doesn't mean a woman can't protect herself. That doesn't mean she
Hmm.
needs a man 100%. It just,
Correct.
that's the energy that is there, but it
Correct.
doesn't mean the man has to do everything either. There
Yeah.
needs to be that partnership. That's where we see a lot of divorces and burnout is because of that separation. They're no longer in partnership. It's 2, 3 years, it gets tough, and it's like, yeah, we're done
Hmm.
versus continuing on. And it's not easy. My wife and I have been together 26 years now.
Okay. Yeah.
So we've
Wow.
been through the ups and downs too.
Yeah.
It's not a perfect ride across the board. I don't think anyone who's been through it long enough will ever say that it has been.
I've never heard of it. Wow. You bring up a piece around being seen, that the masculine really needs to be seen. There's but seen beyond the doing part, right? Like what is accomplished, what's done. Just seen in the space holding, seen in where the masculine is what's like the true intention,
Hmm.
and there's something in that, and then the feminine wanting to be seen in their true intention. And wow, so stepping back and looking at that piece is really, this is why I like talk to my grandma all the time, and she passed along many, many years ago, a long time ago. And whenever I start to get out of alignment, my grandmother either pops in or I ask her to come in. And she had 9 children. Yeah, 9 children. And gosh, okay, she was pretty wild. German. This is my German part of my German side. My grandmother and my grandpa would have nooners all the time. And she talked about this publicly to the family. She was a nurse. Like, I don't know. She was, like, maybe it's inappropriate, but sex talk was not inappropriate in our household. Okay. So, so she was very active and very actively in love with my grandfather. And yeah, they probably had some distortions or unalignments. I don't know. I was a child, and I think she passed when I was in young adult. But what she shows me is all the time the space she held for her children and her husband to be seen. And I watched her with 9 children and 20 something grandchildren seeing each of us. And so that's why I always source her, because I feel like I've always wanted to have that expression. And I feel like I inherited this beautiful gift from her. So I'm working through what I've inherited that is out of alignment, but I'm also working through the gifts of my lineage, and that's one of those. And I think she has helped me heal the masculine feminine piece within myself. And I used to be very masculine. I was very type A, and for a long time, I even sourced being the income earner. And my husband watched the kids for like 4 years. He was, and I was so in that. And that role was a wonky dynamic for me and him. And I was always sick. And we were always separated, always disconnected. Like he couldn't even express what he was natural for him because of those dynamics. Not that because he wasn't a caretaker, because we all have our roles and they're all harmonic. So he has the gift of having that connection with our children because he helped raise them just like me. Different generation than my parents, right? My mother only really was the one, right? So it's beautiful that in these newer generations, we have that balance, and that equality, let's say. However, for him, he was missing a part of his soul expression because he chose to be in a masculine body, and because I expressed the masculine more than he did, not because he raised the kids, but because of the dynamic
Hmm.
that we had, the energy with the separation energy, the way I held the space. I was a controller. I'll still do control a lot. But then when that started shifting, he became happy and there's joy. And now I can be more in a flow state which then is healing my body. So there's a lot of interesting things happening with that masculine feminine piece.
No, yeah, I think it's important that we find the balance and and maybe you are more masculine, you're a man and you're more balanced when you have more feminine energy versus masculine energy. That's okay too. It doesn't
Yes.
necessarily mean
Yes.
you need to be 50-50 or you need to
No,
be 60-40. It's whatever that balance is. And
that's it.
that's fine. I think that's where a lot of people get confused, where it's, oh, I'm masculine, so I have to have all masculine energy. I can't have any feminine energy because that's going to make me weaker. Insert something
Yes.
here. I'm trying to be politically correct.
I know. And we just gotta release all that too, right? We're
Yeah.
just being in we're
Well,
being in
yeah.
authenticity right now,
And
right?
I guess some men would think if they have any femininity side to them, then they're going to become homosexual.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily true. Or if you're gay, you're more feminine than masculine, and that's not necessarily true too. It just is what it is, and
Yes.
it's finding the balance. And again, you could be gay and a man and have more feminine side. That's okay, as long as you have the
Hmm.
balance.
Yeah.
It's not going to make you not be gay if you have more masculine, or be gay if you have more feminine.
Yes.
And I think some people subconsciously might worry more about that or think
Yeah.
those things.
Well, a lot of that. Oh my gosh, I can tell you some stories of working with ancestors around that particular piece. But before I do, I'll say this is all about our truth, right?
Hmm.
And being in full expression of our truth, whatever that looks like. There's no right, wrong, good, or bad. Fuck the political stuff, like we're just really coming into truth. In the new paradigm, it's really about who we truly are. And that whatever that balance looks like, as you said, that's it. So truth is it. And something very interesting, often when I'm clearing, especially the father line, I see a lot of men in the lineage, and it could be like 20 generations before, it could be 5 generations before, it could be 2 generations before. I see a lot of the choice that the masculine made, or the within the lineage, especially on the father's side, of avoiding doing the thing that really lights them up.
Hmm.
And so many times I've seen men in the line who have wanted to be artists, musicians, things like that, in the creative like expression, that shut that down either because their father told them to or society told them to, and they shut that part of them down. And that distortion throughout the whole lineage, the withholding of that expression, has caused so much harm in the ones after them. So again, being in truth, being in full expression, and being able to liberate souls at that level has been very powerful, because they've been able to come back into that reconnection of their creative energy, even if they're, let's say, in another life, or if their soul journey is to stay in the light, or whatever it is, that's a whole other thing, but that piece of not being in truth is what it really comes down to,
Hmm.
in terms of this work.
And so
So
how would you work with those souls to help liberate them, after the fact? Because I understand how to work with someone physically, you talk
yeah.
through it, you work through it, but how would you go and help a soul that, how do you help that lineage
Yeah.
5-6 generations back?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. The other day we worked on, me and a client did death rites on a ancestor that came from the conquistador days back in España, back in Spain. And it was like, I don't even know how many generations, that's 1500s. We
Yeah.
worked on someone. So it can be done at any level, at any time. And we work on like multi-dimensional levels. So everything, everywhere, all at once, right? So it doesn't matter if they just passed or if they passed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago. That whole piece is that we hold the energy at that everything, everywhere, all at once level, the multidimensional level of it. So it's like they're right here, right
Hmm.
now, you know? And so when you're working with them, you're connecting with them on a soul level and their spirit team to come in, and you're tapping into their frequency at that level. And through that, you are seeing, as you said, remember at the beginning, or like with death rites and stuff, you're seeing like what is left to be unsaid, like that they
Yeah.
want to make sure they say in their past. It's the same thing, even at that level. And he had like things he wanted to make sure were expressed. He was showing us where he could not be himself. He could not be an expression. He had a very overbearing mother that wanted him to get to certain ranks, but all he wanted to do was be in like a love connection. He did not want to be in this connection of working the ranks in the military and then bringing people over to the new land and conquer the indigenous. He didn't want that, but we watched his indoctrination happen through his childhood. He showed us all of this. And he showed it was an indoctrination into religion. So Catholicism, like, and that an indoctrination into the military in particular. And we watched how that he started to lose himself and hold himself back. And then we were able to take that and start to heal the wounds, heal where he was out of alignment with his truth and release that. Then we were able to track it through her lineage to see where that has shown up in her people to this day, where you can see how everyone had to choose the family first over their needs and their desires and their expression. And you could see it because it was a very clear line through. And when we were able to kind of find that frequency and liberate and clear that frequency, and the members of this lineage who said yes to release it energetically, that really shifted everything. There are a couple of members that want to hold on to a belief system, want to hold on to a way of being, and that's good for them. There's no right, wrong, good, or bad here. But that's how we were able to work it, even at that level.
And so when you're doing that part and you're seeing everything of that ancestor, is the client seeing that as well, or is it just you kind of describing? Because I know some people will do like journey work where both people go together, they kind of see the same thing. Some people just do it where, they do the journey and then they give feedback. Like how does that work when you're doing that?
Yeah, I am literally talking the whole time as we're interacting, like that, like how we're talking right now. Okay, I
Hmm.
see this and this. And I ask them, where do you feel this? Where do you sense this? Oh yeah, I see this for myself. I feel it in my heart. My heart feels really heavy. Oh, I have this emotion. I feel very angry right now. Whatever their data set is, their intuitive data set is, we're always making sure that they can connect with the intuitive data set. Because a part of this whole experience is to wake them up to their intuitive gifts, so they can have these connections and understand it. So much I'm seeing now is the body is physically expressing the intuitive data set.
Hmm.
Like they may feel some pain or discomfort in their body. And through that, you can track in energetically to see where it actually is coming from and why it's being expressed through the body. And then it may be like, okay, my right shoulder hurts. Okay, let's go into it. Let's start to track the energy. Oh, I can feel anger. Okay, underneath that, I start to feel, oh, I see your father. Okay, let's go into your father. Where is that coming from with your father? Oh, I see his anger. Oh, now oh, I see this piece in your father that he never really got to heal from. And then it goes, oh, and then he got this from his father. So it just like you continue to track and go deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I'm talking through that the whole time. And they are saying, oh, I feel this, or oh, this intuitive hit is coming in. Can we look at this? So that's how we do it. I'm a talker throughout the whole time. So it's not like we're in an altered state and you can really feel the energies and you can feel the spirit team with you, but we're not like, unconscious in it. We're really active in it.
Okay. No, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
I always like to understand the technical sides of some of people's works and stuff too.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
And the other question I had is, so you mentioned, specifically with this one client, there was a conquistador 1500 years ago. So we'll say 20 generations at
Yeah,
least,
whatever
right?
that is. Yeah.
So 20 generations of healings happening. But we'll say you have one guy within that 20 generations, like, no, 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 I'm going to hang on to this because I need this. This is my identity. I'm
Yeah.
not letting go. Now, obviously, your client's going to still get some benefit. Her family's going to get benefit. The generation going before is going to get benefit. But is there going to be a point, you think, where you need to come back and talk to that one soul and say, hey,
Hmm.
man, look, everybody else is on board. this is what your generation's looking like going down the line. If you would just shift a little bit, it's going to be even better, you know.
Yeah, that's a great question about the circling back piece for the ones that like choose their free will to stay. So when I see that in a member of the lineage, or when I see that even my own clients where they're just not ready to let go, I notice it, I see it, I look at different angles to see, okay, is it they're stuck because there's actually, let's say, an influence, maybe a dark force influence, or maybe something else that they're holding on to. Maybe there's like guilt or shame that they just can't release or let go of. So often I'll try to go in to see if it's necessary. I'll ask if it's necessary. I'll ask, do we have to wait? Do we have to come back to it? We'll look at it from different angles to see kind of what I also, if let's say we're meant to move on, then I'm looking through the lineage and I'm like, does this stop the flow of energy in this lineage in any way? And once they personally claim it, often you don't have to do anymore because it doesn't impact others because they only individually claim it. It's not seeping out. It's not an energetic thread. So it's then reclaimed within them and then it becomes theirs only. Now there are layers though. So there could be a layer of something that they're claiming within that's seeping out because maybe it has a different kind of component to it, not based on that story we cleared or that particular energy, but maybe there's another expression of it that's seeping out into the lineage that still has to get cleared. So it can be that too. It just all depends.
And could there be, say, like a curse that's placed upon that family lineage that maybe you don't see right away and you're trying to clear, and then it's like, well, why isn't it clearing? Everybody's agreeing, but there's
Yes.
that external force that you have to go now look for.
Yes. That piece is common too. Could be a curse. It just could be, let's say, a psychic attack. It could be a
Hmm.
dark force energy that created a program or a structure or something within the lineage. Entities. There are lineage entities. There are entities that get passed down from generation to generation. They're familial entities. There's our personal ones, but there's also familial ones in our lineages. So often you're looking for, this is why I call it multidimensional, because we're on so many different layers of awareness with it that within clearing it, there may be some entities that have to be cleared. Maybe there's a dark force influence. Maybe there is a particular member of the lineage who has this like behavior or this belief that then gets passed down and that has to get cleared. So there's so much to this. It's so
Hmm.
vast that, of course, one session can clear out something, but there's so much more to go. This is part of why I offer this free group energy clearing every month, just to sustain and support and be of service to people, just to continue like their work and the process, because once you get to this level of awareness, which I believe we're all coming into a multi-dimensional perception in the new paradigm, in the new earth, that are, because you probably have heard this too. You probably know people who were just living, like you had a person on just the other day, living his life. And then in his 50s, he had this mainstream life as a
Hmm.
business guy. And then in his 50s, he woke up to, you know, this is happening over and over again, that people who never saw anything are now seeing aliens coming down. They're seeing beings walk through walls. They're seeing ghosts. They're seeing things. They're hearing things. They're knowing things that were not there before.
Yep.
That's that multidimensional perception that's opening up for all of us. And so I would not be surprised if we come back to living on an earth where we see the dragons and the fairies and the elemental realm is speaking to us even visually and not just through those subtleties, through those unseen ways. We used to live with humans lived that way for a very long time. I believe that those multidimensional perceptions are going to continue. And so that's why this work is so interesting, because it brings in shamanism and energy work and all these different kind of layers of stuff into healing,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah, and all those layers, like, I don't find, let me back up. I do think that some modalities are better than others for certain situations.
Absolutely.
But overall, I don't think one is better than the other. They each have their own ability, they each have their own purpose. I mentioned this on the podcast before, like Reiki's like the gateway drug for all of this stuff.
True.
It's the easy way to come in. You start to feel the energy, you start to work with the energy, and then, I tried Star Magic out. I just interviewed the founder of that, and it's like I'm making holograms and I'm doing all this weird multi-dimensional stuff to people, and like, curing out. Like I helped a lady fix two bulging discs the other day.
Wow.
And, within 10 minutes, it was just like, and then she's like, what did you do? And then she starts getting up and starts cleaning her house. I'm like, will you sit down, please? She's like, stuff needs to get done. And I'm like, you need to sit down and rest and make sure this sticks.
Yeah.
But there's no right or wrong modality. It's, use what works for you. You don't need to be a full initiated shaman or what you called yourself, like a multidimensional wave shower. It's
Yeah.
if that's your purpose and that's what you want to do, that's great. But you can
Yeah.
still take all these tools and just work on yourself.
Yes,
And
for
that's
sure.
perfectly acceptable. Working on yourself, like we've been talking about this whole episode, is going to help the collective and everybody else around you as you go further and further out.
Yes.
So
So
it's
true.
it doesn't matter which way you go. That's
Yes,
kind of
I
the purpose
agree.
of this show.
I agree.
And I did want to touch because that's an interesting thing you mentioned with the familiar entities. Like I have
Hmm.
worked on families where I've cleared entities out of the entire family because one person brings them in
Ah,
and then they start feeding on other people. But I never considered, even though it makes perfect sense, that
hmm.
they could just be coming down.
Yes.
I've seen soul fragments do that and cause issues, but I
Yes.
never even considered entities doing the same thing. But it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't it? It's got a food source and it's causing the same trauma and
Yes.
openings.
Yes. And we inherit, right?
Mhm.
So it's just a part of that energy that we inherit. So, and then the lifetimes piece, we haven't even talked about, our life stream and like all our past lives and how that gets incorporated and a past life trauma from, let's say, your grandfather on your father's side,
Yeah.
then how he reacts to that trauma then gets passed down. And it could be nothing he inherited from his parents. You know what I mean? So, and I believe we've also been, let's say we've been Sasquatch, we've been Orion, we've been Arcturians, we've been, we've been beyond the human body experience, many of us. Then there's all that ancestral stuff as a part of those lifetimes and a part of that experience. Now imagine going through your life stream and clearing the ancestral trauma of those lifetimes. So let's say you were in a lifetime where you were in ancient Egypt and you were a priest. And what about all of those lifetimes? Like, what about all those ancestors from that lifetime? So again, there's a lot of different areas and angles to go. All you do is you can trust your intuition and see where you've been led to go with that person to heal.
Yeah, and when we start getting into that, then it becomes like now it's like, what am I supposed to focus on? What am I supposed to work on? Because now you're saying, I not only do I have my current lineage, but then I have another lineage over here. Maybe it's on another planet. Maybe it's on,
Yes,
this side over here, and it can be overwhelming for
can
people. So
be.
I guess, what's the best place to start?
Yeah. Mother and father line of your blood, blood or, okay, well, I'm going to get a little complicated here. Starting with biological, right? Mother and father. And then also who you were raised by. Because you adopt their pieces too, their ancestral pieces too. So if you were raised by a step parent, if you were raised by your adopted, that sort of thing all comes into it, but I always start with the human mother father line because that's where our immediate pieces are, right? Where we can really see, a lot of us can remember some of our past, we can feel those tangible pieces. We may know our grandparents, so perhaps that, or at least you hear stories of, or some things have been passed down, starting there. That's always, I offer an initiations course where we start with learning how to connect with the ancestors and then work on the mother and father line. And that's where we go. And that's what we focus on because that alone works so much and heals so much. And then, and then from there, yes, I've taught classes on your ancestor, your Sasquatch lineages, your connection to the Orion, experience and the Orion Wars and like the ancestry there. Like I can go off and off and off. But That stuff is way out there, but starting with your human experience, starting with your immediate family is always ideal and the
Right.
place to go. Yeah.
And then the other thing you mentioned was how our multidimensional perception is awakening and more people are starting to see things. And
Yes.
any tips on that? Like,
Yes.
what can a person do if they're like, was that a fairy? Was that a Sasquatch? Like, what the hell's going on? Like, what am I seeing? Am I going nuts? Should I go see a doctor? I guess what kind of advice on that? Is there something they can do to enhance it, shut it down, open it when they want to? Like, is it, because I've talked to some people who, they've seen ghosts since they were 3 years old. They're like, I
Yeah.
can't turn it off. All I
Mhm.
can do is talk to them. Other
Mhm.
people I know, they can turn it on and off, like different abilities. Like, is there some tips or tricks for that?
Yes, 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 yes. And there's a couple tools like that you can definitely use. I'm also seeing a lot of timeline jumping. I'm seeing a lot of like, I swear this happened, but it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Things like that. There's like a lot of wackiness, like these weird, subtle things that are presenting shadow, seeing outside the corner of your eye. There's a lot of different things. With a lot of that, first of all, we got to remember we're moving into a heart-centered experience and out of like the ego driver ruling the show, right? So we naturally want to go into analyzing, judging, making sense of, versus being in the flow of what's happening, right? So the heart-centeredness is, okay, I just saw this ghost, or I just saw this thing, or what just happened? I literally went from this state to a whole new state, and what happened in between? Like there's just so much randomness that's happening right now. All of these pieces. I don't know if you're losing track of time. I'm losing track of time. Like literally feel like
Sometimes.
I've literally left. Yeah, there's just, but it's a different kind of losing track of time. It's like you were somewhere else and then came back into something else. Like anyways, we what we're working through is we don't have to overanalyze it, right? Our ego driver wants to make sense of it versus being like, okay, this experience happened, honoring, witnessing, observing without like judging it or putting a label on it or just being with it. So what helps support you in that, it's really about going within. And I am noticing dream time to be a very active place to gain clarity and awareness. So setting the intention before you go to bed, maybe you meditate, or if maybe it's just maybe you only have the bandwidth to set an intention. Setting an intention to gain clarity on what is presenting for you. Maybe you want to ask the question directly. Okay, why did I just see this random Sasquatch? Why did this just happen to me? Where do I go from here? Dream time is going to start giving you information. Whether you remember your dreams or not, there may be feelings or sensations that come up. I will tell you in my own experience right now, my dream time and let's say this 3D world time are really blending where I'm waking up in dreams where I'm physically feeling what just happened from that experience in the dream I'm having. Like I feel like I literally felt like I got slapped and I wake up and feel the slap. You know what I mean? Things like that. That dream time experience is going to become more and more important in the new paradigm. So with that dream time, you can gain a lot of clarity. What is happening as I'll wake up and I'll start to get like a feeling, and it may be, let's say, a feeling of the past of a certain trauma I need to heal. That comes to a feeling because I stuffed that feeling down, or I may get a thought form, or I may get a data set that comes in some way that then helps me with the next step. And once that activates a dream time during the day, when you have those slow moments, like you may have in the shower or a walk or something, then more drops in. So using dream time as a way of gaining some clarity and activating your awarenesses more can be super helpful. During your daily life, connecting in nature is a huge one. Grounding, feet on the ground, sit with a tree, and observe nature. You will start to notice awarenesses opening up and coming forward. I have this thing I call tree therapy, where I literally will just sit down with the tree and I lean against the tree. So, and I'll just like go into meditation or altered state and let me ask a question. And all of a sudden, like things will start coming forward, like the tree's communicating with me. Maybe I just feel it physically, like I feel energy rising, or I feel some sort of like vibration with the tree. I will always like kind of set an intention. I ask if I can sit with it, like you do with your animals, I will feel a vibration and then I will bring an intention forward to gain clarity on, and then something always comes through. It could be subtle, it could be not. But for me, with these things that are activating, I'm not freaking out about them. I'm not bringing my ego driver into them. I'm just allowing the flow to be there and know that this is a part of the natural, process that's happening right now. And then I'm asking, show me more in these other tools, dream time, out in nature, whether you're sitting in a creek, your feet are on the creek, your feet are on the ground, you're sitting against a tree. There needs to be, I shouldn't say it that way. I don't want to use that kind of language. It's great to have space right now, stillness time, contemplation time, being time. When you can find that, that's when really things start to come forward. That means uninterrupted, not TV, not technology. Again, no streaming, whatever, scrolling, but stillness. And your mind can still be active in contemplation, but it's heart-based contemplation. It's not like in those loops of worry. You're watching to see if you're having in a reactive state. Because sometimes those reactive states, that's just us looping our trauma.
Mm-hmm.
But really sinking in to that heart and being. It's about being, not doing. That's that kind of energy we're moving into. So those types of things, sitting in stillness, contemplation, nature, dream time, are really giving us a lot of clarity on how to move for our truth into that next step and how to cope with some of those things we're seeing that are different than the way life has been in the past.
No, no, makes sense. And yeah, it's not an easy thing to do for sure.
It's not.
It's I remember years ago, one of my ayahuasca ceremonies, my Maya was like, "Yeah, get out of your head, get into your heart. That's what you need to do." And I'm like, well, "What does that mean? How do I do that?
Yes. Yes.
What am I supposed to do? Give me a map. Do something. Show me what." It's like,
That's why I say go sit in nature, because nature actually kind of does it for you. It helps you to pull you down. Breath work, of course. I mean, if you can start with breath work to just start to clear the mind and relax the nervous system, oof, just that breathing. But I find if I go into nature, and especially with a tree, that switches me pretty quickly. If I ground my feet, it switches me pretty quickly without having to like consciously switch from ego driver to heart. So
yeah,
those kinds of things start to really help. And dream time, you're not thinking, you're not doing, you're sleeping. I mean, yeah, I know some of us have active minds when sleeping, and I do, especially around like the full moon and new moon time. But like dream time will help bring up the unconscious to the surface. So
yeah, and dreams are important, and people should pay. I mean, I remember one year I kept having the same dream over and over and over, and I'm like, "What is going on?" Finally looked into it. I'm like, "Oh, it's a soul part trying to come back." Yeah,
ooh.
and it was telling me, because it was basically me in the military trying to find my way home, and it was every night over and over and over, and I'm like,
Wow.
I'm thinking it's just part of my PTSD or something, but I was like, no, I've already worked on that. What else could this be? And I was like, all right, let me try this, and then that's exactly what it was just a soul part that was ready to come back, and after that, I haven't had the dream since. So I was like, oh, so dreams can be important. It's hard to interpret them sometimes, at least for me, and
Yeah.
hard to remember all of them. So it's when
Yes.
it hits you over and over and over again that usually means something. But sometimes I don't remember half of what happened the night before.
Yeah. But that reoccurring thing, I've been getting a lot of reoccurring like you in lately, and I know then that's really important, right? There's something that's trying to present that for me to look at. And I go into dreams around tracking energy versus interpreting,
Hmm.
because that's what I do, right? Is track energy. So I go into, okay, why is this reoccurring? And I start to go into my body to see, okay, or I go into a feeling. Let's say I wake up with a feeling and I don't remember the visual, I don't remember the story of the dream, but let's say I woke up with a feeling of like being scared. I sense, feel, and know that scared feeling. And then I ask, show me, because I'm always using my spirit team to help, show me why this is presenting. And why was this presenting in my dream? And then they start to bring up little tidbits. I go underneath it, I go underneath it, go underneath it, and then it starts to bring up tidbits. And that's that tracking of the energy to ask. But that is brilliant. What you did, I'm watching, like, you kind of, you flipped it on its head, right? You wanted to interpret it, but then once you felt it, and you change the way you used to have a relationship with dream time, and you changed it into seeing it a different way, and then you got to the result. I'm finding we're so programmed, we're so conditioned that it has to be a certain way, that when we flip it on its head, we actually now are seeing things in a new way. And just like you said before, people are waking up to the fact that like all these structures and programs and institutions and everything are not aligned with who we are and our truth. We're flipping them on their heads and we're creating the lives we want, liberated from all of that. Because we're switching the perceptions and breaking the structures and conditions that we've really been imprisoned in a long time, if you want to use that harsh language. Yeah.
Yeah, and I find too, because it's having too much about knowing the symbolism, because a lot of people are like, well, with dreams, get a book about dream interpretation, understand what the symbols mean. But in my experience, the symbols are going to be unique for each individual. It's going to
Yes.
mean something more to you. So like when I do journeys or I teach people how to journey, the biggest question is like, how much is this is real? And I was like, I don't know, like maybe 10%, because
Who
the way
knows?
I look at it is your brain is interpreting that realm, spirit, all these things
Yes.
that are getting sent to you, and it's putting it in a way that you can understand it. But there's always that one piece that it's showing you that you can't explain, but it's exactly what you need, whether it's showing you a flower to fix some ailment, and this flower is something you've never known about. And
Mm.
you're sitting there on Google looking up images for this flower that you saw on a journey. And I've done this, right? With stones and with flowers, and you find the picture exactly right. Then you look at the name and you look at the medicinal properties or the spiritual properties, and it's exactly what you were looking for. But there's no way I could have known this because I'm not a botanist. I don't study gems or I don't know these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm not bringing up something that I inherently know. I'm
Yeah.
being shown something.
That's
And
it.
it's the same thing when I do soul retrievals on people. Usually it's me doing a journey for them. I go into the lower world, I'll see the wounding that happened, I'll see the soul part. But the one that always gets me is the gift. And I go into this
Mm.
chamber to bring a gift back for them. And it's just a gift to make their soul happy. It's not about
Mm.
their career or their life purpose. Sometimes it could be, but it's really just something that's for them to make them happy, that's good for their soul, something they should be doing. And I'll bring back really random things like dancing shoes or violins or
I love that.
leather-bound journals or even tarot cards and just random things that mean nothing to me, but the client instantly knows what I'm saying. And I'm like, oh, I saw this dancing shoe thing. Oh, I used to dance when I was 6. I used to love it. It was great. Then
Mm.
my dad made me stop doing it because I had to be a man or, do
Oh.
something else or
Mm.
go play sports or whatever. And it's like, well, here you go. Here's go dance again. Like it,
I
you
love
know,
that.
find your soul's happiness again. And it's again, it's not my place to interpret. I could look at the dancing shoes and be like, oh, according to the book, it says, you're supposed to be more carefree in your life and dance through your problems, or, I'm making stuff up here, but it's not my place to interpret it. It's my place to just present what I see and then have them kind of like what you were saying, where you're seeing all these things, you're letting them know, and then they're feeling in their body where it's resonating.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Yeah.
you just let it be.
Yes. And that's that going into the heart, right? Getting out of the head, analyzing all that. It's coming into that space. Yeah.
And You might not have an answer for this, but you had mentioned with the multidimensional perception, how it's awakening with everybody and it's something we used to be able to do.
Yeah.
What do you think closed it off in the first place? Because it seems like
Oh.
same with like healing abilities and everything else that's coming online with people. People are getting all these like light codes and this and that and all these downloads of stuff that's just now coming back. And apparently we used to always be able to do it.
Mhm.
What happened to close us off?
Whew. I think there's a lot of layers to this, a lot of ways. I definitely think there's the dark force infiltration supported that separation. Once we could separate the masculine and the feminine, once we could separate us from, let's say, the natural world, all those pieces, that then really disconnected us from our truths. You can talk about industrialization and our separation from the land, separation from that true connection. Zach Bush, and I don't know if you follow Zach Bush at all. He's pretty famous out there. He has a product line called Ion. It's for like gut health and everything.
I think
But
I've seen that. Yeah.
you've probably seen that in like natural stores. Well, actually, he's not no longer in the business, but he
Okay.
it was his product. But he was an evolutionary biologist. He was an MD, and he woke up to like the spiritual path. So he talks a lot about, he calls the original wound of humanity is our disconnection from Pachamama, you
Mhm.
know, and that once we got separated from that natural world, which is who we are, it's a part of our expression in this 3D physical form, that, and also on a soul level, that really separated us from that. I also work at those dark force levels where I can see the infiltration of that, which helped create the separation. We also, all of this is in that divine presence and the divine timeline or way of being, that separation we chose to separate to come back into our fullness or our fullest truth now, right? Versus what it was then. So it's like a collective process, an individual process, and there's a lot of factors within it, of how. But the reawakening happening within us is to also connect to those levels of awareness. So I hope that helps answer the question in a way of,
No, I think it makes sense. And my even one of my teachers had mentioned too is like the first true wounding that we have as a society, as a people, is believing that we got kicked out of the Garden of Eden.
yes.
Believing that we were kicked out and pushed away from the garden, which basically is Pachamama, having that belief system within us as like one of our true first sins of, Eve eating the apple and us getting kicked out because of what she did.
Yes.
Again, that's twofold, right? It's separating from Pachamama and also separating the masculine and the feminine because now the masculine has to fix what Eve did and try to take care of everything because she screwed up, you know.
It's so crazy. And we also have to remember, like, this is a soul's journey. And at some point, we made choices, right? We made choices to take the paths we have. And not everyone can really support that, right? Like, you choose your parents, you choose the experiences you have. Now, yes, there could be influence in those choices, right? Like dark force influences, ancestral influences, whatever, collective 4D influences from the collective experience, societal influences, all that kind of stuff. Yes. And on a soul level, there's a yes. Every time I track energy, every time I'm working on folks, I'm looking for their yes, their conscious awareness of the choice, and that piece, we have to remember that.
Yeah, it's hard to accept though, right? Because oh,
Mhm.
you mean I chose to come here to get raped when I was 5 and to get beaten and to
Yes.
have my dad do this and
Yeah.
my uncle do that or my mom do this? Like, what do you mean that's what I chose to do? But I try to tell people when that comes up, it's your trauma working through it is now your medicine.
Hmm.
And so maybe you have to be the one to break it for the family. Maybe you needed to go through it in order to overcome it. So now you can help others do it.
Yeah.
As much as it sucks to think that we chose it, we all have a role of some sort. And even this bigger political, governmental,
Yeah.
like who knows, like at whatever politician you hate today, you might be thinking in the afterlife going, "Good job, man. You played your script great. You know, you helped
Yes.
us move forward." It's hard to think about that way, but
Yeah.
maybe it's like who am I to say no to it? But it kind of feels that way the more you look into it,
Yes, it is.
especially like we talked about with the societal stuff. It's maybe we need these a-holes to be in charge of, and all these different organizations that some of them weren't even elected, but we're listening to, and now we're realizing that this isn't the best choice after all.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we needed, and they had to play their part.
They had to play. We all did.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we all
it's
do and did. Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. I think we're going to look back and we're going to realize, whoa, this is what we needed in order to get to this next step,
yeah,
you know?
that's hopeful thinking. Again, otherwise we're going to end up in the cyberpunk dystopian future with robot arms and who knows.
Who knows? Who knows where things are headed?
But looking at the time, oh, geez, it's already been an hour and a half.
Oh, wow. I always get lost in this.
There's that time jump there. Um, I want to start wrapping it up just to keep us on a
Okay.
good schedule, but why don't you let people know where they can find you, if there's any last messages or anything you want to part with
Yeah.
people, and then all that stuff I'll put in the show notes as well so that they can find you.
Yeah. I think, a part of where we're headed and how to really like continue on your process of like discovering your inner truth, really about the message is around being present. All we can do is be present, right? We can be present with what presents and notice if we're having a reaction, take ourselves on, and just, and constantly that presence just helps our body so much and helps us to move through things because we are getting so much presented to us all the
Mhm.
time right now. And so if we can be present with, okay, I'm angry right now. Okay, I'm feeling tired right now. I can, and being in that stillness when you can is really helpful. So in terms of where to find me, again, I do offer a free group energy clearing every month, and anyone can join. It's on Zoom. People from all over the world join. It's at lightbodyacademy.com. Lightbody Academy, so the light body, so lightbodyacademy.com. Also, I launched an initiation course with the ancestral healing, the mother and father line, and how to learn how to connect with your ancestors. And you can find that at lightbodyacademy.com as well.
Nice,
So,
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, ancestral work is very important. Like I know when I run people through the medicine wheel and the initiation for those that want to learn what I do, it's like, now we're going to start with some journey work and we're going to start with your ancestors because at least get connected to them
Yes.
because we want to build up that spirit team before you do anything else because
So true.
I don't want them walking into like an entity situation and then have no one there to protect them at any case in point. But it's,
Absolutely.
and with ancestors, and maybe you have a different viewpoint, but I tell them too, like, just create a small altar in their space.
Mm.
It doesn't have to be huge. It can if they want.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
can be as large and elaborate as you want, or it could be something as simple as just a candle, maybe a stick of incense and a small bowl of water as an offering, where you just say thank you, say good morning, kind of like what your mom was doing, talking to your grandmother, or
Yeah.
it's just say hi,
Yes.
please, don't come at it from a place of just asking for things over and over, like, hey, can
Yeah.
you, help me win the lottery, or hey, I need this problem fixed. I need this, I need this, I need this. Come from it from that relational aspect of,
Mhm.
hey, how's it going? Here's some water. Hope everything's well. If you need anything, let me know. And then if you have something to ask, you can ask later on, but you don't want to be that neighbor that's always borrowing the tools and never giving them back. You want to be reciprocal. We want to give and take.
Yes. Yeah, it's co-creative relationship always, isn't it? Isn't it? I love that. And I think that for many people, altars are like such a great way to do it. And the way you explained it is so perfect in building the relationship. And having that altar is that physical presence to do that connection
Mhm.
with. Again, I was raised differently just because, again, I was inherited a connection already, right? I inherited a way. And so when I say this, I'm literally talking to my ancestors like I'm talking to you. That's how I was raised. So I think I missed a step, right? Like I didn't have that step of getting that connection started. It was already inherited. So yes, the altar thing can be a wonderful way, an intention setting way to build the relationship and to connect. Then you'll start to notice the subtleties and the expansion of that as you build that relationship. So it's a wonderful tool, wonderful way to do that for sure.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, just because I always find this question does come up, if you're adopted or taken care of by a different family, that's okay. Guess what? You have double the ancestors now.
Yes, you do.
It's you have more, and you don't need to have their pictures. You can even exclude certain family members if you're not ready for them to be on right now. Like if
Mhm.
your father was a problem or your mother, currently right now, my wife's father, he
Mhm.
doesn't want to play nice, so I kick him
Okay.
off, and then I give him a year. We try again, because he just recently passed, so he's still working through some
Okay.
stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like, I'm just going to give you a little bit more time. You go do what you need
Yes.
to do, and when you're ready,
Yes.
we can talk. But
I love that.
you don't have to let
Mm-mm.
any Joe Schmo back into your house, especially if you're not ready to deal with them either, or they're not ready to come back. We have sovereignty in this process where we get to choose, and
Absolutely.
you might not know any of your ancestors. That's okay too. Just
Hmm.
see who shows up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You have to be aligned and ready anyways, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not ready to approach that ancestor, it's not going to work, right?
Yeah.
Or it's not going to be helpful. So yeah, I think you're right on.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time. This was fun, and again, I'll put all your stuff in the show notes. I hope people
Awesome.
at least show up for the free monthly healing, and that way
Yeah,
they can see what it's all
absolutely.
about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And if something our guests shared resonated with you, connect out to them. That's what these stories are here for. And if you're looking for deeper healing or support, you can always find me at pnwshamanichealing.com. See you in the next episode.